Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we're talking about the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett. That is our brand new Star Wars show that we got today, which is really exciting. And with me, we have Tony again, and then we have my wife, Sarah. Thank you to both of you for being on here with me to talk about this new show. We're going to start it off with just kind of talking about the episode. So there are spoilers, obviously. We're going to talk about what happened. Um, for me, the thing that I wanted out of this episode happened right away. So right from the get-go of this episode, we see Boba getting out of the Sarlacc. He's kind of remembering things. He's in a bacta tank, and he's getting these little flashbacks of what's going on in his life. Something that was pretty cool was that we saw flashbacks of when he was a kid a little bit. Not so much as when he was an adult, but we saw a brief shot of Camino and a brief shot of Geonosis when he picked up his dad's helmet after being killed. Moving along, he's been in this bacta tank recovering. His body is a little bit messed up, so to speak. He's not the bounty hunter I'd say he once was, just because of his limitations. And we get this back and forth in the episode of his memories and where he's at in the current day. So his memories, we kind of see that when he came out of the Sarlacc pit, he was just exhausted and couldn't do anything. And the Tusken Raiders actually picked him up and kind of made him their prisoner. And we see along that storyline that they take him prisoner. They force him to do different things. They force him to dig for water for them. At one point, he tried to escape, and a prisoner ratted him out. So there's kind of a dynamic there that they don't like each other. But one other interesting thing is that they showed Boba and the other prisoner a moisture farmer. I didn't see more than one person there getting robbed by a gang, swoop gang. We can see the water coming out of their equipment, and they're just taking it and leaving. And it almost looked like he was being mugged. So Bulba's kind of seeing like the nastiness of Tatooine. And I think that's kind of what fuels the present day stuff, where now he's the ruler of Jabba's palace. And he mentions to Fennec that he wants to rule with respect. And he doesn't want this unnecessary stuff to happen during his time of being in charge of the palace. We see a little bit of people paying their dues to him, different characters. There's a Trandoshan that pops up. There's also a Twi'lek, and I think one other one, which was kind of funny because they don't have a translator and they don't know what he said. So he kind of tells Fennec, "Did you get any of that?" And nope, we just know we got money, kind of a thing. So they might be looking into getting a protocol droid. But they also, when the Twi'lek comes in, they're expecting the mayor, and it's not the mayor. It's one of the mayor's disciples, so to speak. And so Bulba and Fennec go to try to meet up with this mayor, and they get their payment. But as they're leaving, they get ambushed by a group. And one interesting thing that we get out of this is that after Bulba has been smacked around a little bit, he's begging for bacta. So we can see his limitations as far as, once he knows he's kind of medically in trouble, he has to be rushed to that bacta tank, which leads me to something I forgot. One person that came in at the beginning when he's getting all his dues is a couple of prisoners, which were Gamorrean guards that once worked for Jabba, and they now work for Boba as well, in return that he doesn't kill them. Moving on from that, Fennec chased after the last couple of people that mugged them. I don't remember or don't think we got to see the resolution of that quite yet. So we'll see what happens there. But otherwise, the way that the episode ended was part of his memory, where him and the prisoner were being led back towards the village of the Sand People, and they were attacked by this big creature. And Bulba ended up taking out the creature, which gained him some respect from the Tusken Raiders. We kind of see that when they come back. The person that was taking him around had the head of the creature, and then when they got back, one of the leaders gave Boba a, a drink of water. Um, so it's kind of their way of showing their respect to him for what he did. But that, from what I remember, is about what the episode was. Um, so moving into some things that we liked and disliked. Tony, what are some things that you liked and disliked about this episode?
Well, I guess overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I think it delivered, first of all, what a good first episode in general should do, and setting up, setting the scene, setting the table, so to speak. And I also think it was a great first episode for the type of story that they're telling, because it's clearly a changing of regime, like regime change sort of story. And you see um, how Boba deals with the area and the issues that come along with it, and how he's going to deal with these problems. Are people going to try to take advantage of him, or test him, and stuff like that. And Boba has to think about what is his philosophy going to be of ruling. So I think that was all set up great. I appreciated the flashbacks. I think not only is that something just kind of cool for Star Wars fans, but it also serves the story in that we kind of take a pause and we see, okay, like what happened more or less between Return of the Jedi and when we see Boba in season 2 of Mando. So we kind of see that. So it's some nice nostalgia, and it serves the story, I think. I also appreciated the lack of dialogue in the flashbacks, at least, which made the visuals that much more important. So there was a heavy visual storytelling component to it, and that's not easy to do in a medium that is already hard to do, being film. So I thought it was really good. I was satisfied. I think it did what it was supposed to do, and most importantly, I'm excited to see what comes next.
Nice. Um, Sarah, what do you like?
I liked it overall. I liked the flashbacks. I found it a little confusing for me to follow between the flashbacks and how he said they were dreams versus just flashbacks. I thought that was kind of weird. I like seeing the Gamorrean guards again. That was pretty cool to see them actually do something, because like kicking some butt. I totally missed that the people that the Twilight they went to go visit was the mayor from the first person.
I thought it was, because I thought they were trying to get their dues from the mayor.
I have no idea, but it would make sense if it was. I think for me personally, if I were to think of what could be better with it, because I don't think I would give this a 10 out of 10. I think it could have been a little bit better. And the reason why I say that is because I think there's still unknown story between the flashbacks, and then obviously there's unknown story about what's going on now. And so for me, I almost wish the first episode was just the flashbacks, like one fluid story. And I think they could resolve that within one episode and then move on from there. I know Jeremy doesn't necessarily agree with me on that one. Tony, I don't know about you, but I don't know. That's kind of what my preference would be for this episode. It wasn't as strong as I was hoping it would be, but it was still interesting and cool to see some new stuff.
Yeah, I can see your point of view. Some of the things that I liked, I will say I am in agreement that I enjoyed it overall. But what I also would say is that I don't think it quite hit for me what I was expecting. But the things that I did like, I'll start with that, is they had so many little tidbits. The one thing that if you've watched our discussions in the past, I'm a big nerd for sound effects and where these things are coming from. And some of the things that I picked up on is when I mentioned earlier that Boba is like relying on Bacta, and it seems like, he isn't the person he used to be. The noise when he puts on his helmet is the same noise that Vader's helmet makes when it seals. So I wonder if that's some sort of connection of, he's not 100% human, quote unquote, like Vader was. Another big thing that I heard was when Boba came out of the Sarlacc pit. I think I forgot to mention this.
That was a pretty cool scene. I like that.
He didn't get discovered by the Sand People right away. He keep going in and out of the shot.
Oh, oops.
He got mugged by Jawas at first, and they took all his stuff. And one thing I thought was interesting was that all the sound effects from the Jawas, like the way that they talk and everything, was directly sound clips from A New Hope. They were all the same noises that they made when they picked up R2, when they were interacting with Luke and Uncle Owen. It was all there. And if people don't believe me, I can point it out for them. That's how nerdy I am when it comes to the sounds.
That's pretty cool.
I also mentioned that the one thing that I was really hoping for out of this episode did happen, and it happened right away. So I had that satisfaction immediately, was seeing Boba come out of the Sarlacc pit. One thing I thought was interesting about that was that it didn't follow the Legends storyline of how he got out. So that was interesting to me. In the comics and books from the past, he like jetpacks out of the mouth, whereas this one, he climbed out of the side of it. And then you see him kind of crawling out of the sand as if he was coming out of like a quicksand, so to speak. So it was interesting to see that different dynamic there. Some things that I think would need some things I disliked about the episode. It's hard to deliver the tough love, but I feel like it's a due diligence. One, not to compare it to the other shows that have been on Disney Plus, but it was the shortest first episode, which worries me about the future because we all know the issues about timing. I also felt like it was almost the weakest of the 4 Star Wars shows that we have for the first episode. And the reason why I say that is because I remember watching season 1 of Mando, season 2 of Mando, and season 1 of Bad Batch coming out of the first episode thinking, yeah, I want more. And some of the stuff that bothered me in this episode, the first fight scene that they had when it was Boba and Fennec being mugged, the combat and the choreography almost looked like Bulba's going to put his arm up here. Okay, you hit me there. I'm going to put my arm here. You hit me there. And I felt like it wasn't fluid enough where it seemed non-choreographed, if that makes sense. I felt like it was a little robotic in that sense. I remember seeing in the preview the shot where I disappeared, where Boba comes down and he uses a spike to hit somebody and it looks like slow motion. I had thought that would have been like a final kill. That was the only slow part that would have been about it. But it felt like the whole combat was almost as slow as that. So that could be part of, him not being 100% himself, which I would totally get. I just didn't anticipate that happening. Also, the last thing that slightly bothered me, when we saw the monster at the end, I couldn't help but think it was a Pokemon ripoff, because that monster, if you know Pokemon, Machamp is exactly that creature. And I couldn't stop thinking about it.
But
I was thinking Mortal Kombat. The dude from Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Does Machamp ever use those extra arms to walk on them?
No, but he could. And also something interesting about that fight, when they first see the creature, I felt like the creature seemed more big and gigantic. Whereas when Boba kills the monster, it almost looked like he was the same size as Boba from the waist up. So just it seemed a little odd to me the way it was filmed. Not necessarily the actor's fault, but just the way it was shown. Um, so that's my tough love for the episode. Tony, was there anything that you felt could be improved moving forward?
So yes, I do feel like though, just being the first episode, I kind of tone down my criticism a little bit because I don't want to immediately be like, oh my gosh, this sucks. And then, and then it's like, fixed in the next episode. But I would say something that I'm slightly concerned about that I hope they address or explain or do something is that it could be just me, but I feel like in this episode, Boba was moving like in the fight scene. He was moving and fighting. How should I say this? Not as fluidly and as strongly as he did in season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Yes, that's a great comparison because
Yeah,
this is the first time I've really wanted to put one of those words out there on the channel, but he kicked butt in that episode.
yeah, yeah. And I remember like when he was surrounded and him and Finnick were surrounded, and I was like, oh boy, like it's about to go down. And then it was just ting, ting, zap.
It was about that slow too.
Yeah. And I'm just like, dude, why don't you just like jetpack up and then, get behind them and then, start wrecking them? I don't know. And you have Finnick there too. And they might have not had firearms with them. I couldn't quite tell, but either way, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's just something I thought of. So I just hope that's something they expand on or address, and it doesn't just keep like that.
Yeah, I would think he had at least the things on his knees, the little missiles.
Mhm.
We saw him put those on.
He had cuffs on, the wristlets.
Yeah, I would
Mhm.
assume he would have had the flamethrower. So yeah, I totally agree. I feel like those comparisons just night and day. This should have been, especially since the scene that we saw him, that takes place after Mando season 2, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm very curious to see where it goes.
So that's probably my only thing. Yeah, I know some people I've already seen online, they don't like the slow burn approach that I think the show is going for. I don't mind slow burn stories as long as the payoff is good. So that doesn't really bother me. That's just a stylistic choice as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But yeah, the potential lapse in continuity of Boba's fighting ability. But other than that, like I said, solid first episode. Ready to see what's next.
One other thing I really liked that I'd kind of missed earlier is Fennec's character. We know we've seen her before, but she didn't have like a whole ton of dialogue before. So seeing her talk to I almost said Jabba. Wow. Boba when he's on Jabba's throne and like, do you want me to kill them? And just the way she says things. It's comical without pushing it, I think. I don't know. I just like her personality.
I think she had quite a bit of dialogue in Bad Batch. That's probably the most we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hands down am excited to see the second episode. This did not deter me in any way. Like when we said, Bad Batch kind of made us think, oh, we have another one to watch. I'm very excited for next Wednesday when we get to see the next one, potentially Tuesday night, because we actually watched this last night. One more connection I want to make is they are presenting this in the same way as Mando as well. The whole title sequence is the same way as Mando. I don't think it was the same music.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they say, the Book of Boba Fett, and then they say like, chapter 1, and then say that the title, it's all the same way. Sarah didn't quite remember, but she was wondering, I don't know if you remember, Tony, did Bad Batch do it that style too?
I think so. The sound, like you said, might have been different, but yeah, because I remember the Bad Batch logo would pop up, like it'd be like, oh, and then it'd be Bad Batch, and then there'd be like some drums. It'd be like, "Doo, doo, 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 doo," and then it'd go to the title of the episode.
Oh yeah, yeah, you are right.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've done that for all these
Mhm.
episodes. They'll probably do that for all their shows then, because they're probably having a consistency with that across them.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like it.
Anything else you want to say about the episode?
I don't think so. Tony,
I'm good. I'm good.
do you hear me?
One last connection I'll make. I appreciated the Tusken Raider pet that was in there because those were in episode 2 when Anakin slaughtered all of them. But it was cool to see them. It's
Oh,
nice.
what? Sorry. I will say one last thing. I appreciate that they're still sticking with practical costumes,
Yes,
Yes.
like actual
absolutely.
costumes for the characters. I always like that's just so Star Wars for me. That's like one of the most Star Wars things you can do in a Star Wars show movie, and I'm glad they're sticking with that.
One last question to both of you. After seeing the first episode, did it make you feel like you wanted Boba to wear the helmet more?
Oh, I'm pretty indifferent. I don't care.
I'm kind of the same because in Mando, he didn't really have that same drive to wear the helmet all the time.
Hmm.
He kind of just wore it. Well, I was gonna say he kind of just wore it in combat, but he was in combat a lot. So
I wonder,
Whatever the story necessitates, I don't care.
right? I wonder if all his time with the Tusken Raiders made him not need to wear it so much. Because before then, we never saw his face up until, Mandalorian. We knew what his face looked like because he's a clone, but he never had the helmet off in the original trilogy. So I almost wonder if that was kind of the gap. Because I know, like speaking from experience, when I worked at my job, I used to wear a hat all the time. But once I had started teaching, I stopped wearing a hat. So now I don't wear a hat anymore. So I wonder if it's almost like that. You go through that spell where you don't need it anymore, and it's not as common. I don't know, rambling a little bit, but yeah. So we're excited for season or episode 2. We will be back next week to talk about that one as well. So if you haven't already, please turn on notifications. That way you are notified when that episode drops. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop us a like if you like this video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on this first episode of the Book of Boba Fett. And then before we go, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Sarah, for being on here with us. And then we will see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.